Sound check, mic check. I'm here, you're here. Let's go.
Yeah, check. Yeah, check. 1, 2.
Mic check. Mic. Hey. Good evening, everybody, and welcome.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. Sorry, Mikey.
Thanks for joining us, and good night.
That was it. Yeah. So, welcome to this current stream. I'm going to close YouTube because it's going to be.
That's fine. I can pass on questions and stuff like that.
So yeah, this is our second round of our new attempt to do a slightly different thing with our streams. So on 1 week we'll be doing Godot stuff, and then the following week we'll be doing Blender stuff, which is Mikey, who's in one of these two directions. I don't know which way we're mirrored this week. Then we will play a game, and then we'll talk about company stuff. Yep. So my plan today is just to share some basic tips that I found with Godot, some techniques, show what we've got so far. I don't know how many people have got in yet, but we'll see. I don't know how good my internet is, because on my screen Mikey is very, 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 very fuzzy. So am I fuzzy on YouTube?
Well, I had a trim. I think that's a bit mean to say. You look sharp on YouTube at the moment, and your video stream looked fine earlier. Now, before we dive into the Godot stuff, a little bit of housekeeping. I did say that we were going to be launching our Concepting in Critter course today. That is not going to happen just today. There are a few other things we need to sort out. For those who actually have early access to it, I hope you're enjoying the course so far. That should be there, all complete for you guys to go through. So just a bit of housekeeping, I think you could call it that. But we'll let you know over on the Discord when it's up and running. It's almost there. So close.
Do we want to talk about what we've been doing in battle tactics, or should we just leave that for a couple of weeks?
I think we should surprise them with the thing we're going to talk about after the stream when it's all linked up and everything.
Okay. Basically, lots of cool stuff has been happening.
Yeah.
The one thing I will share is I did make a Godot bot accessory.
Yes, I saw that go in the Discord.
All right, so let's share a screen and let's get my little text thing up.
Let me know when you're ready to share.
I'm sharing my screen now, I believe. Am I?
Nope, it's black my end. You're just in a void at the moment.
It says I'm sharing it. Let's try that again. Share my screen. Screen 2, share.
Interesting. It was working a moment ago.
It's right here, Mikey. Can you see it?
Nope.
My goal.
Let me have a look and see if for some reason your screen... I can't see it on...
How about if I do that?
No, that was just replacing your head. Interesting. Yay! That's it. You pushed the right button.
I pushed the same button 4 times.
Well, there you go. You need to press it 4 times.
All right. So things I want to talk about. One of the things that I've discovered when I was trying to make a level for battle tactics, kind of rediscovered because we've found this before. But let's say we've got a lovely, dark, moody interior nightclub scene. So let's make a 3D scene, and I'm going to give it a camera. And I mean, we're not actually going to use the camera, but just a real quick level. So let's make, for instance, that's going to be a plane. That's going to be a floor.
So we're just setting up a basic scene here.
Just setting up a basic scene to show the problem and how to solve it.
Awesome.
So here's that, and that's why I'm sort of rushing past right now. So just putting in some geometry to have something to look at. So there's a back wall, and we'll just put in one more thing. Let's say sphere. All right. So we've got this scene, and we've been spending time making it pretty. So here's an Omni light and a world environment, and we want a nice dark world environment. So new environment, and we want a background color, custom color in black, and we'll do a nice little ambient light instead of a deep purple like that.
Nice.
So we have our scene, right? It looks a bit like that, and we could move the camera and do some other stuff. But let's say that this sphere here is actually a glitter ball, which is how I did this, or anything metallic, right? So we want to, a nice, clean metallic color. So I'm going to go in here and make a material for it. I'm doing it on the mesh data. rather than on the object. You could do it in either. And let's give it a sort of light gray color. I'm going to give it a roughness of 0. So it's pure shiny and metallic of 1.
It's gone black.
No, it's vanished. And this is what I want to talk about, right? If you've got a nice dark interior scene, how do you make the metal work? And the answer is you kind of have to fake it, because what's happening here is it's reflecting our background color. So if I put this as a sky and make a procedural sky,
it'd be blue in
suddenly
color.
It works fine. So how do we fix that? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the sky contribution and take it out of the ambient light. So we've got indoor lighting on an outdoor scene. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some planes. So let's make a mesh instance. And here we go. And I'm going to rotate that by 180 degrees on the x-axis and make it a giant.
So, quick question here when it comes to the lighting. We have obviously lights in the scene. So with 3.4, I'm presuming that it doesn't take those into account when it's calculating the lighting on this object.
No, it does, but not for the metallic.
Ah, interesting.
So if I take the metallic off this object, it works just fine.
Mm-hmm.
But if I want that metallic shine, it's going to use the sky and the floor here. Remember, we had this problem when we were doing the Godot RPG prototype, and we made this lovely sky texture, this HDRI.
Yeah.
And everything metal was weird. It had this blue underlighting. And we realized that the problem was our texture had no horizon. So everything underneath was cloud. So what we're going to be doing is effectively creating a fake floor. So if I take this mesh instance here and make it 60, and this one here.
So you basically constructed a little square room for our object to be in.
I've created a little square room, right? So you create a box. You just make a box and make it interior facing. But the fun bit is this thing now needs a material. So I'm going to make, I'll put it in this channel now, spatial material, and I'll make it unshaded, and I'm going to make it unshaded in black.
So that's interesting. If the metallic requires the environmental lighting, it might mean that if you have, let's say, metal grating on the floor in an interior environment, you've got to really be careful. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a real nightmare managing your materials.
It's really if you want to get this pure black color, right? So when I made the club level in Battle Tactics, which I can show in a minute to show how this works, thing, I wanted to use that black background color, but the black background color won't allow you to have this reflective effect. You can have reflections, you can have other objects in the scene. So let's say there's another sphere.
I've got another question in a moment as well.
Please.
And if anybody else has questions as we're going, I presume it's okay for them to ask away.
Yeah, that's what this is for. So if I turn on SS reflections, we should see this object right here if it's close enough, right?
Yeah.
There it is. And that will work with or without the metallic. But if you want this metal effect, you have to have a sky effect for it to be there. Otherwise, it simply won't work.
Does the roughness have an effect? This is the question I was thinking about. Because the roughness is set at 0, it's 100% reflective. So maybe a roughness of about halfway. So it's not 100% rough. And that starts to bring that in. Does the sky make a difference now, I wonder?
Let's find out. I actually don't know. Clear color. Yes, but you don't get that mirror of polish.
It's where it goes all the way up to being 100% rough.
And you'll notice it doesn't actually look that. I mean, I realize the roughness is pretty.
It's going to be uniform, isn't it?
Right. Like it's not looking great. This might be an effect you want for some things, but if you want that mirror shine effect, so like a glitter ball. So shall we show the glitter ball?
Yeah, that'll be a great example. Do you want to save the scene to hop back to, or is it just a new?
I've got 2 versions of Godot because I need this one to be Godot Steam.
Ah, yes.
So the file name is Disco Level. Give it a moment to load up. La 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 la. Okay, so there's a lot going on this level, but we have this glitter ball, right? And it had to look like a club effect. So what I've got is I've got the camera out here. I've got the floor set to black. I've got a plane right here. And the reason it's a plane is a plane only has, well, it's only two-dimensional, right? And there's no backface culling. So with the camera in its position, if I go to the camera, which is la 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 la, where's my cameras? Where's my cameras? Preview camera. You can see we're actually looking through the ceiling, but when we get into the victory cam,
yeah,
the ceiling is there, right? So that allows me to have this dark effect by controlling the ambient lighting and the actual individual lights while having a very bright sky for this glitter ball. And yes, all these tactics in the background will be dancing. It's a great level. And yes, this glitter ball works, which is a fun little effect. So that's kind of the first thing I want to talk about is when you want to be using different versions of skies, because often when I'm working in 3D stuff and I want just a 3D object floating in space, I will just have a clear color or an effect. We actually don't have just clear colors a lot in this game because I always want either some sort of sky effect or it's a transparent viewport, which I'll be showing in a little while. But yeah, if you're getting this problem, change your sky type and make a fake black box around everything. So if I take this material, here we go, and I'm going to copy it, and I go to the floor, and I paste it. There we go. And then we'll go up back here, and we'll put our sky back in. And obviously, whatever procedural sky you put here is what you'll get. I don't know why you would have this effect, but if you want this effect, this is how you would do it.
It's an alien planet, isn't it?
It's a purpley metally thing. The key thing here is in my ambient light, I've got the sky contribution down, right? Otherwise, everything that is not unshaded and black, or just everything that's not unshaded, is going to be taking the local lighting color, specifically the sky color, which is not what I want. And it's not actually using the sun effect, I don't believe, so you should be fine. So there's my little specular, and that's the thing. So that's my first little tiny tip. It's a very quick one, but it's just about how to get that metallic effect in a black environment. Of course, if you're using a sky environment, it's fine.
So it does depend on how you're setting up your level. It's something to take into account.
It's really depending on what you need. All right. So now I want to talk about something that's a little bit more fun, but has a couple of weird bugs in it. Well, not bugs, behavioral quirks. So we're going to get a 3D scene. In fact, you know what? Let's just use the same 3D scene.
And it's not any of my children, is it? They've got loads of behavioral quirks.
I'm just checking my notes. No. Okay. Let's say we want a camera in our scene. All right. And the reason we might want to do this is, well, I can actually show you right here. Let's go back to the club level. Club, kaboom. These are not static images. These are this dude on camera. He looks a little blue because they're not unshaded, like they're reacting to the light around them. But for this one, that's fine. So as he dances and spins and does his thing, all of these screens are going to show it. So how do you set that up without getting all kinds of weird error messages? So let's hop on over into Not Blender. And this sky is annoying me a little bit, so I'm just going to put those back to defaults. Ha ha ha.
Can I guess how it's done?
Please.
Have you set up a sort of a camera projection?
Not quite.
Ooh.
We do need a second camera, so we will put that in a minute. But let's put in a new mesh. And for now, we'll just do another plane. So not multi-mesh. What am I doing? Brand new mesh. And it's going to be another plane just because I want a screen. And I'm just going to rotate it by 90 degrees, which is over here. And put it back here. This is going to be our screen. And it's going to show from over here. So let's make this camera current. And for now, I'm just going to add a different camera. And it's going to be over here. and I want it to show whatever this is. Okay, so I'm going to call this projection camera or screen cam. And let's just call this screen. Okay. So when we go into our mesh, we're going to add a material. Or you could do it outside the mesh data and just put it in the object data. That's fine too. We can go down to the albedo, and on the texture, we can do viewport texture. And it's going to say you can't because it's not set local to scene. This is problem number one. Okay. The reason it's doing this is you could make a dozen of these screens and they could be instants, but they're all technically the same texture. So it can't have multiple views happening at the same time. It's not a problem. Just go down to resource and click local to scene. And now it's going to work better. So I can go back here and say new viewport texture. But now we have problem number two. We don't have any viewports. So let's set up a viewport. We could do a viewport container if we want a control thing. I don't. I'm just going to set up a viewport. And this is going to be a little bit annoying. Whatever dimensions you put in here, I'm going to put 1900 by 1200 because that's what my monitor is at. That's what you're going to get there. We'll talk about a couple of other things you can do. But first, it's going to move this camera into our viewport. And now let's take our screen and click on our viewport and assign our viewport texture. And it should be working, but I can't see anything. So let's go into our flags and not transparent. Let's use unshaded.
Is it behind that back wall?
Yes, it is. And it's stretched out. So there's a couple of ways we could fix that, but I'm just going to make this roughly like that. Okay. So far, so good. But let's say we want to run this level. And I'm going to save that as my default scene. Select current. I haven't saved the scene. Clearly, it's my first time on a computer.
This happened to me the other day. Occasionally, when I'm wanting to make sure that what I think is going to come across when I'm modeling something, I bring it into the game engine, and that was happening. I was like, "Why is it not happening?" I had
okay. Now I don't have anything here, right? And if I go into the camera and I preview that, it's actually a little bit high. So let's move this mesh down. It's down by transform, isn't it? Which translation in Godot 4 will be called position. So get ready to change all of your stuff. Let's actually make this nice a bit. Let's say 6 by 4. So we can actually see its own reflection over here, which is nice and weird. Okay, so let's run this scene. And I'm still not seeing it. Now, there's a few things going on here. One of the big ones is whatever instance is coming on this screen is going to have to be on top. This is also really finicky, which I don't much like about it. So let's go into our screen, and I'm just going to make this whole resource here local to scene. And let's put this camera on current as well. Now, you might be thinking you can't have two current cameras. You can have one current camera per viewport. So now when I run it, I'm hoping I can see the thing. Wonderful. Now, it updated a little later. There's things you can do in the viewport there. You can click on the viewport and under flags, where is it? Not flags, under rendering. You could say, when is it? No. But I sworn it was, here, it's under render target. When are you rendering? Always when visible. By default, it's going to be like a few frames later. But we have error messages. And these error messages build up. They get really annoying. Cannot get path to node as it is not in the scene tree. It's here. I'm looking at it. Play it again. Error message comes back. All right. These get really annoying, and you might have a situation where you have a few different screens or looking at different stuff, or every time you log on, you don't want to fill your log with a whole bunch of these. And yet Godot does actually generate logs, which you can't print. I forget how, but it is possible. This is actually one of those things you learn right at the beginning of your Godot journey that you sort of forget about and doesn't come back for a while. What's happening is everything in Godot loads from the top of the scene tree down to the bottom. And we've told this sphere that your material is a viewport texture set to this viewport. And on the first frame, it hasn't loaded in yet. So all I need to do is take this viewport and move it anywhere above this sphere and run it. And I get no error messages.
That's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned something today, folks.
It's one of those things I keep forgetting, and it like you're trying, especially when you're making a reasonably big project. Like Battle Tactics is not a giant game, but it's a lot of things going on. And you're going through and it's like, why are there 18 error messages every time I load this scene? And this is why. There's also a couple of other fun things we can do here. So one of the things we notice is why? Oh, because my camera's a weird angle. Let's just move this camera to this camera. Here we go. To over here for now. And yeah, you can look at the sky. That's fine. All right. There's a few other things you can do here. One of them is transparent background. And what that's going to do is turn anything that's sky into transparency. That's not that useful yet, but there's some other fun things we can do with it. So I'm just going to move those down to here. That's kind of cheaty. But let's say that this viewport camera can see, here we go, everything that isn't on layer 1. And let's say our spheres 1 and 2 are on levels 1 and 2. Okay, so it's working. It just can't see the floors and walls. So right now it's floating in the void. We can turn that off, make it not float in the void. Wrong one. Make it not float in the void. Bibbidi. So we can see the sky. We can see the things. We can't see the floor. Great. Mm-hmm. The light is also not on layer 2. So let's put that on layer 2. There we go. All right. First things first. This is often.
Yeah, I was sat there thinking that I can't see the reflections. So what's up with that? And it was that light. It looks upside down. Is it upside down?
It is upside down. Usually, whenever you flip it over, the video feed will be upside down. Not always. It depends on how you rotated it. But if you did, right to target, V-flip.
That makes a lot more sense now.
Okay. So here we are. Let's do something fun. Let's say that this viewport has its own environment. Now, you can't have 2 environments per scene. If I just copy and paste that, I get a warning, right? There's already environment loaded. I'm just ignoring the other one. Okay. Let's make this unique. And I'm going to give you a completely different sky. Let's say your sky is... Okay. So I want our default environment in this view and our weird... Actually, let's give it a sort of matrixy feel, even though I hate that movie. You heard me.
Soundtrack was good.
Soundtrack was amazing. I mean, the fashion was great. Let's just make this a weird alien planet. We can even put fog in it if we want. It's an environment, right? I'm going to call this green world. Great. I'm going to take this viewport. I'm going to give it its own world. I'm going to click on the new world, and I'm going to bring in. Oops. Come back. Oh, I have to save it. Okay. I'm going to save this as a scene. So save branch as scene, environments. Typing it. Green world. Great. Go away, green world. Okay. View. Camera's still there. But it's invisible. Great. Environment. Quick load. No. Load. Oh, I saved it as a TSCN. Save it. Yes, yes. Okay, let's go back to here. Okay, don't save it as a branch. Save it as an environment. There we go. Put that in your environment scene. La, 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 la.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay, I can remove that from here. Go to the viewport. In its own world, I can quick load green world. Okay. For some reason, I can't see this camera.
So just so I understood what was going on there, the first time round you'd saved it as its own scene rather than TRES, a resource?
Yes. So instead of being a TRES, which is a text resource, I saved it as a TSCN, which is a text scene,
Yeah.
which is a different format and calls different things. I think I've done something slight. Oh, I'm going to click Own World. Quick load. Don't do this again. New world. Quick load. Environment. Okay, for some reason I'm not seeing the camera. Let's move you back here. Where are you, camera? There you are. You get the viewport and you vanish. Awesome. That wasn't working before. That wasn't doing that before. There you is. That's new. All right, whatever. Let's see if this actually works in here. It does not. Why don't you? That used to work just fine. World. Good. Fine. So that is actually working in my other game, but it's not working here. So instead, let's move on to the next trick. That was wonderful. So I'm just going to get rid of that. Okay. So instead of that trick, let's do this one. We're going to do, here we go. Background. Where are you? There it is. Transparent background. So now this is in its floating here with its own sky and so forth. Oh, do I have to do it in here? Yes. Okay. I should have put it in the camera, not in the viewport. So
gotcha.
These two are now lit by the green environment, and I could put the fog in. You could put you could put a canvas layer with a shader effect if you want to put a glitch in there or something like that. So this information here is now that, and this doesn't have to be, you know, a plane. It could be where's my screen? It could be a box. It could be a sphere of its own.
That's going to get a bit gnarly. If that will that stretch it out across the surface?
Oh, it's not going to like it, but it can be done. If I remember, I do this every time. Local to scene. New viewport texture. Get my viewport. And let's make it unshaded. Go to
it. Super stretched out. So that reminds me of our almost of our UI discussion we were having the other week, where it comes up with an error. So it would be brilliant when it comes up with an error like, oh, you need to make sure this is local to scene, that there's a box there to say, make local to scene.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be great. Let's actually just get rid of this background for a moment. Yes. Okay, so we now have that. And do we see the sphere? We do. We can't see the texture properly because there's all kinds of stuff going on, and you shouldn't really be using a sphere. But that's some of the things you can do with viewport textures. So how could you use these viewport textures? There's a lot of ways, but in one of them, and I'm just going to go over to our other project here. Let's go to customization. So this is our customization screen, which we showed off a little last week, I believe. Did we?
Yes, yeah, we did.
Okay. And one of the things that's important is we have, well, let's run it and I'll show you. Okay, so we have these tabs with our currently unlocked accessories. I've wiped my save data to show things. Yes, all right, go away. As you can see, Steam pop-ups are working. We'll talk about that another time. We have a bunch of accessories. We have these colors, and we have these colors, which are separate. And we also have our 4 little cats here. We don't have 4 little cats. We have 1 little cat and then 2 of these scenes. So if I go into the scene and show you the 3D-ness of it, we have a body who's down here who has 3 cameras, 4 cameras. Front, side, rear, and 45 degrees. 100 meters above that, we have this little color wheel scene. 100 meters above that, we have this little color wheel scene, which is exactly the same, but named differently. And they've got this little sphere controller that's just going to change the rotation of one of these. Am I on the right one? No. It's going to change the rotation of one of these. So if I go over to here and I say rotate me, la 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 la. Oh, that's the wrong one. If I go here and say rotate me, la, whatever. Why you don't work? It's in the script. I can't bother to find out which one it is, but because we have so many different 3D items, what I've done is they're all in the same environment, right? So we see this nice little sky here. There's a directional light down the bottom, which is giving this lovely little specular effect on all our toon shading. So I want to reuse this as much as possible. So what I've got, if we scroll all the way to the top, is I've got a grid container. Our grid container has 4 viewport containers. Each of these viewport containers has a viewport with a camera. Each one has a different camera. So the camera actually lives under the viewport, not in the 3D scene. But it's got the same translation information, right? So transform information. So it's sharing its coordinates with the body and the color wheels. What I mean by that, 0, 0, 0 is the same place in all of those scenes, right? So if this camera knows that negative 2.275 on the Z and 0 on the X and Y, then that's the same as it would be if I type those coordinates on the body here. So by doing that, we can have multiple viewports in here. And because of the way Godot deals with containers, because they're in a grid container, they'll just fill out this way. You'll also notice that we don't see this sky. And the reason for that is we have transparent background clicked. Then behind those, I've got another grid container showing the same position with this little texture in it. And that's so that if we have very dark tactics, we don't lose them, right? I want to be able to see what they're doing. And it makes them look nice and dramatic and comic-y. So with some fancy viewport shenanigans, you can have 3D in 2D, you can have 2D in 3D, you can have picture in picture, you can have security cameras, you can have reflections on a monitor, or, there's all kinds of stuff you can do. Or a nice showroom effect like we have here. How are we doing for questions, by the way?
Fine at the moment. If anybody does have any questions, let me know.
What he said. It also means that we can have our level discos. I kind of feel like I want to show off this disco scene. Did we show this disco scene last week?
I think we showed off the previous version of it. I know you've added a lot to it since then.
I have. So I'm just going to show this so we can look at the picture in picture, which you're just going to see in the background. I've renamed it to Club Kaboom.
Nice. I sorry, I was just dealing with spam in chat.
Ah, yes. You see the little DJ dance here. We can kind of see in the background if we lose or win a game. Oh, thanks, guys. AI vote for the win. And we can see the DJ's little dance in the background. So nice. It's just those little effects we can have. Let me close that. Let me close that. Thank you. That was a weirdly buggy thing. We've got some errors. Somewhere I've got a viewport that's loading in too late, and I don't know where it is. So we'll figure that out another time.
Is that not higher up, not high enough up the?
Probably, almost certainly what that is, or it's not finished loading the scene or something like this. There's a load order going wrong somewhere. All right, another cool thing is if you want to start moving stuff over to Steam. All right, first things first, Godot Steam is a build you can use for Steam, and it's kind of awesome. I'm just going to move my bookmarks out of the way because they're distracting me. Great. It's kind of awesome. Though you probably want to rebuild it yourself, but if you don't, they've even got pre-compiles, which I don't think they used to have. Now, what this is doing is using the Steam API, or grabbing the Steam API into a version of Godot, so you can access all the Steam commands and signals. And they've got a bunch of things you can do right here. So let's say some functions, and I want to look up matchmaking, and I want to say, I want to grab the lobbies and I want them over this distance. So that's the command I want to use. They've also got tutorials on how to do that. So let's say I want to load an avatar in. All right, so it's just showing you the very Steam Connect things you can do. The reason I'm bringing this up is, and this is still an alpha, I am currently using it. It's not flawless. It's good for some types of game. But let me open this. Actually, they link to it in the tutorial. So let's go to the tutorials and down to lobbies, player-to-player networking. Godot Steam high-level networking, right? So this is a solution that you could just plug into your game and access peer-to-peer networking and lobbies. Now, some caveats.
It's alpha.
It's alpha. It's in GD script. It's not in C or any of the C languages. It's peer-to-peer. And it's generated to just be a plug-in thing. So it's not wonderfully performant, but if you've got small scale games with low numbers of players in a fairly low action scenario, which I think we might be on the border of because I'm still working on the latency issues. This is quite easy to use. Now, you do have to have some familiarity with Godot and the concept of networking. If you're not comfortable with an online multiplayer game, if you're not comfortable with things like who gets permission over which function and which object, if you're not comfortable with the concept of a remote procedural call, don't do multiplayer yet. Like, learn those things and get used to them. Our Godot Getaway course is a little example on how those work. But if you are playing with them, or if you want to make a single player Steam game, they're really good. And I do recommend them. Godot Steam in particular, once you've got it working, is great. And it leads to, I'm just going to very quickly tease this. This is the wrong one. Very quickly tease this. And I will say this is a dev environment.
I'm just going to pop the link to the Godot Getaway that you just mentioned over in
I'm just going
the
to
chat.
create one of those and go to my friends list. And let's... where's my...
There's me.
Hang on. Yep. Am I in the game? Oh, I hadn't updated yet. It should I've only just added this today, so it's slow. I should be able to invite you to the game, but for some reason I can't. It was working literally just before this thing. Maybe I'll invite Jelly instead. No, great. So let's invite you to whatever. Still working on this. Let's move past that. But yeah, it allows you to get all this stuff working. This should be... Oh, wait, am I visible? No, I'm not. Why aren't you working?
I don't know.
Whatever.
I'm definitely here.
You're definitely here. This allows you to get started on this stuff. Now, you can just read the Steam API stuff and do it yourself. There are tutorials on how to create a lobby. It's just a simple way to get started, especially if you're doing P2P networking, peer-to-peer networking. So yeah, those are sort of my quick and easy little tips that I've got prepared. I think, actually, I've got one more I want to talk about. Yeah, you can. Thank you. Yeah, Steam overlay. Let's talk real quick about, you know what? Let's get rid of all these gubbins. I normally start it empty, but I didn't. Let's say we have an export variable, and it's an array, right? Called things. So save that, and here we go. We have an array called things, but it doesn't know what type it is. Now, if you're loading in resources, or you want this to be statistics or players, there's all kinds of things you can do. So what you can do is when you bring in your array, put a comma and say what kind of thing it is. So maybe it's an integer. And now when it comes in, it knows that each of these has to be an integer. Or maybe it's not an integer. Maybe it's a resource. And now it knows that these things, no, it should do, once I've saved it, it knows that these things must be resources. So I can, for instance, take my environment and drop in my environment. That's a resource, so that'll work fine. It's a great way of bringing in levels or anything, or materials or anything like that. But there are Let's put this in a function so it's easy to use. There are other ways you could do this. So I could put a colon here and tell that things must be an array. Fine. What if I want an array of integers? I could get pool.
Pool int array, is that the one you're looking for?
Pool int array. Okay, so what is the difference between just having an array and only putting integers and a pool int array? Well, on one level, it automatically knows that if there's anything in your array that isn't an integer, throw an error, and it's going to be easier for bug fixing. But the other thing is a pool int array is an array specifically designed to hold integers, optimized for memory uses, does not fragment the memory. It also doesn't have access to all the same functions. And this is why I want to talk about it, because I have a variable called other things, and I call this an array. If I hold control and click on the array, you'll notice we have more methods, right? Now, this becomes an issue when you want to find a specific point in your array. So let's say I've got append array, empty, insert, invert, pushback, remove, resize, set, and size. But under array, I've got erase as well as remove, right? And then I've got push, pop back, pop front. So remove allows us to remove something by its position. So if I know that it's at integer array position 6, it'll go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You're out. Great. So I've got my pool int array, and I want to remove position 6. What if I don't know its position? I just know that I need to remove this player from my array list, or this name, or whatever it is, right? Or this particular integer. I can't use remove. I want to use erase. But by passing an array or creating an array in a function that's only made of integers, it'll automatically make a pool int array. And that's going to be a problem. But what I can do is this.
Can you cast it so it changes type?
Mm-hmm. So now it's going to be a generic array. It's going to be slower. It's going to be, less performant, but it's going to give me access to these array methods. If there's a situation where you've generated an array in code and it knows it's a pool int array, so take these and put them into an array, it'll just automatically put them in a pool int array if they're all integers. And then you want to sort of pull it out and slow it down and get things like erase and pop front and pop back and push. That's how you would do it. This took me a little while to figure out, which is kind of why I want to talk about it. So yeah, those are my little tips. I'm actually surprised I finished this early.
That's okay.
Well, I say finished. There's plenty of things I can talk about.
So you brought up the difference there between the pull int array and arrays. Is there any particular reason why you would use one over the other, other than the functions available to you, other than those methods?
Speed. Pool int array is much more performant in memory. So if you've got very large arrays and they're all integers, it's just simpler.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And the reason they're more performant is they don't have as many methods. There's not as much you can do with them. Right, so that it's kind of a trade-off. Do you want fast or do you want
more functionality? Quite literally,
more functionality. Yeah. So times we will use that. Well, I mean, we've explained why you would use that. There's also a fun thing you can do with strings, actually, while we're here. And I didn't realize this on my first version of discovering Godot. Let's say we have a string variable.
So this might be like a player name?
Hints. Well, if it's a player name, this is easy, right? I could just type in Mikey. But if it's a hint, Mikey doesn't like to run over balloons in his car.
It's very loud, very poppy.
This isn't helpful from an editor point of view, right?
No, it just says Mikey doesn't like. That's not useful at all. Hey. I mean, that's so useful. I could see that being incredibly useful if you were writing not just hints, but like if someone was to open up books within the game. I mean, it might be
Item
preferential to have those
descriptions. Yeah, I mean, you
externally.
might want those as an external file.
Yeah.
But for things like item descriptions or loading tips or whatever else, tool tips, right? This is a great way of doing it. There are downsides, but generally it's a good way of doing it. While we're here, actually, let's talk about BB code.
BB code?
So I've got my thing, and let's put a center container. And the center container is going to cover the entire screen. And let's put a label in it. I haven't put a font in, so it's going to be annoying. And let's put test words are testy. And you know what? This font is too small.
We can make it bigger.
Oh, I don't have any fonts loaded.
There you go.
Let's put it in here. All right. So this is a label, but there are times you might want like more. Oh, well, first off, actually.
Oh, you can animate
an easy
that.
way. Yep.
Oh, like those 90 things, like the military thing at the beginning. 0800. Yeah.
Or you're doing like a pixel art RPG and you want that old school like text thing with a little sound effect. That's one way you can do it. But another thing you can do is instead of using a label.
If that's on multiple lines, does it do the first line and then the second line? I mean, I would presume it would.
Yeah. You can also do it by character if you know how many characters there are. But percent visible is easier. And you can also skip various lines. So
nice.
Lots of ways you can do that. With a simple animation player, the animation player doesn't care what the text is. Well, in fact, we can show that off right now. Let's do that. Animation takes coordination. Animation, the game we all can play. First, you take a bag of donuts, then you give them all to Yan.
Donuts.
All right, so let's put you over here, put a key in, and after a second, you'll be fully loaded. Great. So the only thing we're animating is the percentage. So if I change this, it doesn't care. It's still going to take a second. One of you Simpsons fans, right? So quick, easy effects you can put into your games. But other quick, easy effects you can put into your games include the rich text label. Meow,
Jelly has just popped in. Hi, Jelly. He's just said, and now before your eyes, the amazing Yan will make these donuts disappear.
Right. Okay, so we have this text which isn't showing. So let's go to my size flags and go, let's give it a minimum size. Say 400 by 400. Boop. All right. That's nice spell before. Great typing. Now, there are some downsides to using a rich text label. One of them is, unlike a normal label, so if I duplicate this and make this a label, change type, label, I can change the alignment and change the vertical alignment, right? So we have vertical alignment here. We cannot do vertical alignments on a rich text label. It's just not possible. We can use BB code. But if I just type BB code in here, I feel like a right numpty. And the reason for this is you have to go to BB code, enable it, and type it in here.
Okay.
And we've got access to some fun things. Now, if you look at the documentation under Godot BB code, you'll find a whole list of these and how, the different settings you can make. So we could do shake.
Did you just have rainbows?
Yep. Frequency, no spaces, equals 2. Oh, it's not shake, is it? It's on wave. There we go. Yeah, rainbows is easy. Let's do rainbows. I know I should be closing my tags. I'm sorry. And these all have things. So if you go to Godot documentation for rich labeled text, in fact, we might even be in here. Do they list the BB code commands? BB code. Boop. They'll list under each one all the different commands. So let's say under wave, you could use amp equals number, frequency equals 2. Remember, don't put spaces around your equal signs. They won't work. There's a tornado effect, which is fun. There's shake, there's a fade away, there's a rainbow, and custom BB code tags and text effects. If you understand shaders, you can make your own stuff because it's kind of the same idea, right? I'm going to take where it is mathematically, change the colors, change the position, change the size, and do it that way. I'm not good at that, so I don't do it, but they do give some examples, so you can just extend a script and put them in. Key point. If BB code is disabled, won't work. It'll just move it back to the text box. You must enable BB code and you must put it in here. And if you want to use this as a piece of text, the property you want is not rich text label, thank you, text, right? Because if I then put in center, whatever, this won't work as BB code, as bulletin board code. If you don't know what bulletin board code is, by the way, it's back to the pre-World Wide Web days of the internet when bulletin boards and Usenet were basically what you use the internet for.
Yeah.
You dial in on your modem to a bulletin board rather than to just the World Wide Web or to your internet service provider and get content from there.
It's like connecting to one place on the internet and that's it.
Yeah. I mean, there were other things. There was Fetch and Gopher and whatever. Ask your grandparents.
Yeah.
So I don't want to do it this way. I want to go BB text. Right.
Yeah, okay.
I got so many bugs trying to get this working. So when I put it in the accessories unlock system that I'm not talking about this week, I wanted some fun things and it was driving me nuts. And I finally figured out where I was going wrong. So if I go into the thing we're not talking about this week, I'm not talking about it, Michael.
That's fine. How could you? Oh, crap.
Let's go to our level template. La, 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 la. And here's our unlock box. I could probably hide standby. We don't need, well, I'll leave it for now. So yeah, check it out.
So it's a lot smoother than that. That's important to know. That's just the streaming that's got it.
Well, I've actually also got it very, very, very slow because I didn't want to make it overwhelming.
Yeah, it's just I know on the stream it's gonna be. It looks like it moves and then stops, and then moves and then stops. It does continuously move.
20
more.
There we go. And we could change the level as well. Now, personally, I think that might be too much. But we've got the actual item that you win, which we don't see right now. Here we go. Because there's nothing you've unlocked. Wait, oh, because... So I just wanted it to be a little bit more interesting than just BAP. All of this is going to change, but yeah. Well, we're now up to 52 accessories, Michael.
Wow, that's come along so much. I'm looking forward to being able to contribute some assets to it.
I mean,
anytime.
I know you are. You've been busy recording. So yeah, we've got like a few minutes left. So if people have questions, concerns, comments, donuts to send me, jingles,
Krispy Kreme donuts, or will any donut will do?
I'm not a big fan of the custard ones.
Any donut will do.
I know, I had that in my head too. So yeah, any closing comments, questions? Do you want to build a snow yan? Like, what's your...
It's not Christmas. Well, winter. Well, I suppose it is in the southern hemisphere.
I've got my evaporative cooler right in front of me. I'm nice and chilly.
Awesome.
I can't see that. Well, in fact, I could probably open it up here on my thing and see if there's any comments or questions.
There's no questions at the moment, but if anybody does have any, now is the time to ask them.
Great. So, Michael, how have you been?
I've been awesome. I'm going to switch to just us two for the moment. So I'm one of those people. Let me start fresh. I'm one of those people who has a obscene amount of games in their game library. There was a while where I was just subscribed to Humble and I got the free games, well, not free games, but the subscription games. I was like, there was a point when they were good and then it got kind of rubbish, so I stopped at that point. But I've ended up with a huge Steam library and I'm a sucker for Steam sales. But anyway, I started playing through some of the games that I've seen or I've started playing in the past and I've been enjoying them. And I can't remember what the one I was playing at last night's called. I'm just going to open up my Steam and have a real quick look. It's a survival game. It's set in winter. And it wasn't actually on Steam. It's on the Xbox app. So I do apologize. I want to say The Forest, but it's not. It's the Lone Dark.
Oh yeah, that is on Steam.
The Long Dark. Sorry. So The Long Dark, and I wish I was actually recording it. I don't usually record gameplay and things like that, but I wish I was recording it because it was a series of frustration after frustration after frustration because they use a non-standard control system.
Oh yes.
So I was wandering around. So the first thing was you press the space bar to get a radial menu, and I was like, okay. I thought that would be jump. It's obviously not jump. There's no jump in the game, but all the interaction is done by left clicking. I was like, okay. It took me a good 45 minutes to work out the control scheme, and I was just like, this could have been made a lot easier just to follow pre-done paradigms. There was no real reason to switch those paradigms to new ones.
It's one of those things that you're sort of putting it together and you think, oh, I'll just bind this here.
Yeah.
And then it's done. You forget about it. But actually, it's so frustrating for a user to have to relearn everything.
Yeah. Fortunately, it was WASD to move around. But it reminds me. It reminds me a lot. The first time I played DayZ, I had a very similar experience with the control system because it's jank. It really is a horrible control system. I like the idea that in order to let's say cook meat,
we've got more spam.
Yay! We're being targeted by a lot of spammers this evening. If you report them and put them in timeout.
I'm not putting them in timeout. I'm just hiding them.
Yeah, that's the one. That's very lucky of us. We must be big enough to attract them. And if you report each one, they disappear. There we go.
Also, I think they need to check their grammar.
I doubt it's even a human.
Well, no, the name of the person makes it sound like I'm providing for Tinder. I'm like, no. Anyway, that's inexact.
So DayZ, I died plenty of times in that game because of the control system. Because I couldn't even work out how to make a campfire.
It's one of my biggest bugbears with Blender. Is just remembering how to navigate when I've not used it. Like this whole hold down the middle mouse button and shift nonsense. Why?
I after playing around and getting in some game engines, I do wonder why that. I wish there was probably an add-on that does it, but holding down the right mouse button and just flying around the scene is quite intuitive.
Yeah, but that's interesting because every time I show you what we've done, if you've been recording a bunch of Godot, you forget that and you hold the middle mouse button and hold shift in Godot and sort of gently scooch the camera over and like just the right mouse button. Use WSAD and like you can just move.
Yeah, there's a name for the type of control system, holding down the right mouse button, and it kind of automatically turns on like a flying mode throughout your scene. But I've gotten so used in Blender for pressing shift and some keyboards it's a tilde key, some it's a back tick. But if you press those two, you go into a fly mode, or rather a walk mode, but you don't have gravity.
But then when you come out of it, it snaps you back to where you were. So if you're trying to move around to get a better view, you think, oh, I'll just use that thing Mikey taught me. I press
Yes.
move around. This is where I want to be. Press escape. No.
I'm gonna launch Blender here and
yeah, Jelly, when you're moving between like Godot and Blender a lot, it's like, come on, just
so yeah, if you're flying around,
why the middle mouse button of all things? It's such an awkward thing to press.
So yeah, I think if you move, you have to left click at the end. Yeah, you have to left click at the end in order to work it out.
That's not intuitive. Like, I love Blender, don't get me wrong, but
they've come a long way.
Too.
They have come a long way.
It used to be so much worse.
Yeah, left click now for selecting items is far better.
Left click for contextual menu. That was a great idea.
So you might get a big.
We take all this stuff for granted, right? And it's worth remembering that people who don't use a lot of computers don't have that language built up. And I'm old enough to remember things when like WSAD wasn't how you played games. You would use the cursor arrows and control for fire.
I remember that lots. So I replayed Doom 2 when it got remastered, or not remastered again, but when it got re-released, and I was surprised that there was no aiming. You didn't aim up or down; you just moved left to right.
And it was really have an up and down. I mean, they did, but
yeah, but that's the thing. It's an old control system, and because you just pointed in the direction,
one that actually popularized WSAD and mouse.
Yeah,
because keyboard and mouse was suddenly an option, and for a long time, everyone was like, "Why would I use that?" And then you try it, like, okay,
Quake, I think,
can circle strafe.
Yeah, Quake was a big one for those back in the other day. I've seen those, and it's amazing how back then the graphics were seen as good, you know. And now you look at it and it's like mud. It is literally like playing through mud. I know that's also an aesthetic choice they had, but it is like playing mud.
I mean, they use a very brown palette, which I'm not a fan of, especially medieval games, by the way. I get very annoyed when people talk about how realistic a game is, and it's all like bare stone and mud everywhere. Like, no, they were decorated.
Yeah.
Yeah, these games don't age particularly well, but it was revolutionary for its time. I mean, Quake was the first really high-speed game that looked and played like that, and some of the hacks they did to get the lighting working are just insane. I mean, that bit shifting hack in particular, you can look it up, but it's, I mean,
the comments along with it.
The comments alone are worth reading about it for.
Yes, when you can aim. Yeah. So, yeah, Gary there. It's a very, very good point. As soon as you change the game and give it a modern scheme, you really need to update everything, including enemy AI and everything else. It was very interesting. I've seen it might have been Ahoy. He's done a load of retro game sort of like breakdowns and things. He was talking about how with Doom, the original ones, they even have sound. And in order to activate the enemies, the sound propagates throughout the level. But in order to activate enemies and get them to go through a portal to attack you, when you start killing monsters in a specific room, they've actually got a little cutout that if you look for it, is there. But obviously you don't want all monsters to be active at all times because you want to be able to jump scare the player when they actually come into view. So I found that very interesting that they... almost like they hacked their way into it to make it work how they wanted to.
Oh, they absolutely did. Like, they had a impressive little 2.5D engine, but they really pushed what it could do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was another one I was going to say. Oh, yeah, speaking of AI, we had a fun moment earlier this week where I was trying to get the unlock system working for our accessories, and I got it working. And I told Mikey, and Mikey downloaded a version of Godot Steam, because now we're not on basic Godot anymore. Pulled the Git, started playing, said, all you have to do is win a level. At the moment, that's the, and he had the same problem I did, which is 4 levels back to back of the NPCs suddenly being really competent.
I was like, statistically, this is
AI.
Odd.
Like, no, this is how they're supposed to be behaving. And then, as you saw today, they just all killed themselves.
It is bizarre AI, and the only way of really debugging it is to trawl through lines of response. What's the AI doing? but you've got four characters doing it multiple times, calculating multiple times a second.
A frame.
That's a lot of data to trawl through to try and work out why an AI behaved in a certain way.
I also tracked down, I think I'd accidentally done I was trying to figure out the latency issue. And I realized every frame, the host is setting the global position and the motion variable for every character, right? But the host is also doing that every frame whenever they receive the data. So you were getting 5 updates per frame instead of 1.
That's going to be confusing. Which one's the right update?
Well, no, you're just updating the data because you're only reading it once per frame.
Okay.
But updating it 5 times a frame means I'm sending 5 times as many packets as I need to every frame.
Yeah, just one.
But it's just one line of code making that wrong, and suddenly everything's...
You invoked your angry genie.
I did invoke my angry genie. All right. How are we doing for comments and questions and things? Yeah, I don't think Jelly should be the hunter. He's a good builder.
No hunter.
So yeah, I think we are at the end of the thingamy.
Awesome. Well, there was some stuff in there that I had no clue about. So thank you for educating me. I'll probably forget it. The next time you show me, I'll be like, oh, that's really interesting. I didn't know that.
I mean, viewport's a lot of fun to play with, so play with those.
Oh, you could create a load of TV screens so as your player walks up to them, they're on the camera.
Don't forget, though, the more of those you have in a scene...
You're re-rendering the scene, aren't you? So
yeah.
Well, from the viewpoint, like that. That's fine. Can't be that costly.
Bastion has a wonderful series of videos on how to do things like mirrors.
Mirrors are a very really interesting thing, but we can leave that for another time. Awesome.
So yeah.
So thank you everybody for joining us this evening. I've enjoyed it. I don't have any jelly, but I do have ice cream. Well, we have got jelly. He's in the chat.
Thanks, Jelly.
No eating jelly.
Yeah, so I think that's it. So bye.
See you guys next week from a blender. Bye.
What's that?
I'm getting